Well, guys, here we are, finally. The much anticipated video where I've gotten comments, I've gotten Discord messages, I've gotten like 1,000 people requesting me to make this damn video, so finally I'm doing it. This is the not official, the unofficial, atrueboss's opinion on what the high funds tier list is. Recently the high funds tier list got updated. They used to be like where they had, basically they used to have like a few COs were broken, a few COs were like kinda good, and then like tier 3 was just like everything, and then tier 4 was just like whatever was left. So that was the old tier list. It got updated recently, but I think it's like kind of like all over the place because people don't really look into high funds that much. So the tier list is just kind of like I don't think it's as polished as the tier list in the other variants. So yeah, this is just my opinion on the tier list and where I think the COs stand. So this video is going to be pretty long, so yeah, whatever, let's just get into it. Let's just get into it right now. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to go in order of what I see. Like here, I mean, like when I went onto this site, this is all randomized. I've sorted out the tier list here, but this is all randomized. I'm just going to go in order of the COs. So okay, first of all, Adder. He is tier 4 for sure. I think where they've placed him on the league is pretty good. It's pretty accurate. He doesn't have any day-to-day abilities, which is kind of shit. And he also only gets +1 movement. He only gets movement bonuses when he uses his powers, which is not that amazing because your opponent can basically just play always in range, and so it kind of you can use that to fight against Adder really well. Adder really wants to take advantage of the movement boost by zoning and also getting his units to the front lines more. So if you're on a map like where you have to reinforce like multiple turns for your units to go from the bases to the fronts, Adder can be pretty good on those maps. But on most high funds maps, that's not really the case. So yeah, tier 4 Adder. He's not amazing. He gets to spam his power every now and then, which is kind of nice, but it doesn't really do that much. So yeah, tier 4. I mean, he's not garbage. He's still usable, just he's not that great. Andy is I would say tier 3. I'd say he's this tier above tier 4 because I don't think he's quite tier 2 or tier 1. Because he's a very hard CO to use. I think he's like one of the hardest COs to use in the entire game, even though he's like the mascot CO for Advance Wars and like the most basic entry-level CO. He's like extremely difficult to use properly because his main gimmick is that his units repair up, and in order to take advantage of that, you need to have damaged units in the first place. But when you're playing in high-level games of Advance Wars by web, your opponent knows that you're Andy, therefore they're only going to play when they can kill off your units, and so you need to put yourself in a position where your units can't be hit twice and they can't be killed off, and you have to play in this very certain way, which can be really tricky to do. But when you use him right, you can really take advantage of his powers. If you use him wrong, let's say all your units are at like maximum HP, your opponent has killed off all the units and you don't have anything to heal up when your superpower comes, then Andy doesn't really do much with his powers. All he gets then is like a little firepower bonus and a +1 movement, which is kind of mediocre for a superpower. A superpower wants to just like other COs have superpowers that just end the game, but like Andy's superpower in that case wouldn't really be doing much. So you have to really know what you're doing to take advantage of Andy. He's a very hard CO to use, but he can be good if you use him right, because you can put units into like somewhere where they can get hit, but they don't die, and your opponent actually can't touch it, and you can use tactics like that to gain an advantage if you know what you're doing and if you're good. So yeah, tier 3. He's better than Adder. He's better than Adder, and he's better than all the other guys that are going to go down here for sure. Okay, next we have, yeah, no doubt about it, Colin. Everyone knows that Colin is super good. I don't really need to talk about him very much. He basically spams his little power every other turn. His little power is one of the best in the game. It's like only 2 stars, so it's the cheapest power in the game. And it gives him basically 1.5 the funds of what he already would have gotten on the start of the turn, or however many cities he has. So he gets even more in high funds. So his advantage, like his day-to-day, he gets minus 20% deployment cost. So he gets even more of an advantage in high funds because he just gets more funds and takes more and more advantage of his deployment cost. Not to mention power of money. I'm gonna put like, I'm not in the move planner right now or the damage calculator, but if you look in the damage calculator and you give him like 60,000 funds, and you just see like what kind of things is possible with 60,000 funds, 60,000 funds power of money. He can basically just use power of money to gain the most insane firepower bonus in the entire game and just wipe out the enemy with. It's insane. So he's not only does he have the biggest firepower boost in the game, he also has more units than pretty much any other CO. So he's just gonna like I don't know how you fight against him. I think the only way to fight against Colin is to use Colin yourself. I don't even think that the other COs that are going to go in tier 0 can touch Colin. I'm pretty sure I'm just going to put Colin in God tier here. Yeah, I don't even see Hachi touching Colin, really. I really don't. So yeah, enough about Colin. He's broken, mega broken, should always be banned. So yeah, next we have Drake. I would say Drake is, yeah, he's here. He's pretty good. Global damage is very good in high funds because all the COs who are superpower COs, they're much better in high funds than what they would be in standard and fog, because the powers charge faster. So all the COs that their main gimmick is their superpower, they go up a little bit in strength in high funds. So yeah, Drake, he's tier 2. The global damage is super annoying. Combined with the fact that there are a lot of gimmicky maps in high funds that use boats a lot and transport and stuff like that. It has a lot more gimmicky maps than what standard does. So you can take good advantage of Drake on those kind of maps, and he can be really good. I think he can be just as good as Olaf, if not better than Olaf on a lot of maps. So yeah, Drake tier 2. Where in tier 2, I will sort that out at the end. I will do all that at the end. Okay, Eagle. Yeah, Eagle is mega broken. I've made a whole video about the Sensei versus Eagle matchup. If you haven't seen that, go check that out. But it is, yeah, like moving twice in one turn is just mega broken. His superpower is 9 stars, but it charges super fast because it's high funds, and not to mention that it's not actually 9 stars, it's more like 6 stars. When it's like 6, he gets to move once, do all of his attacks, and he'll probably get like 3 bars of charge from the first turn anyway. So his bar is basically full at 6. So it's not, so his charge is not as expensive as you think it is. It charges really quickly, and he gets 2 turns like every other 3 turns. This guy's gonna be moving twice. With all his Neo tanks, all his bombers, all his copters, everything except infantry are going to be moving twice. Mega broken, top of tier 1, probably tier 0, but I don't know if he can compete with Hachi. I've never tested that, but yeah. Okay, Flak, yeah, garbage. Honestly, Flak's abilities just make him worse than having no CO. Like you'd be better off with just no day-to-day. Because the reason Flak sucks is because he has the bad luck factor, which is much worse than having good luck, because this means you can't reliably kill units. So let's say you have 2 tanks attacking onto a city. You really want to kill that tank on the city so that your other units can go through and follow through with an attack. But with Flak, sometimes you won't kill it. So yeah, garbage. Sorry, Flak fans, but yeah, Flak is just garbage. However, there are some other COs which are more garbage, which we'll get into later. Grimm is tier 4. Grimm can be utilized pretty well in high funds because he loves to spam copters, because his copters are like, they can't be killed by enemy tanks. Even with their bad defense, they can't really be touched by enemy tanks. So you get one swatted straight away by anti-air anyway. So your opponent still has to build anti-air, and they're still dealt with the same way that any other CO with good defense would deal with anti-airs. So yeah, you can buy a lot of weird units in high funds, which kind of offsets Grimm's weakness, because like they're just units, like air units for example will always be countered by like something that kills it in one shot anyway. So bombers, fighters, stuff like that, you can use this to help you out in the metagame a bit. So I think Grimm is a little bit better in high funds than he is in standard, although he's not amazing. He's still tier 4. He's still pretty bad. Having negative defense is pretty bad, just because you want to... It basically allows tactics for your opponent and disables tactics for yourself. Like, you can't really build walls very well. They just get knocked down as if they were cheese. So yeah, tier 4. Grit. Okay, Grit is I don't he is pretty garbage. I'm not gonna lie, he is very garbage in high funds. But is he as garbage as Flak? I don't think he's quite as garbage as Flak, although he is really bad in high funds, because you may think that you could just build a whole bunch of indirects, but because the nature of high funds is really quick and really aggressive, the indirects are just too slow, and your opponent just ends up controlling the whole map, having more properties than you, outnumbering you. They'll have air units, they'll have everything. Meanwhile, you'll only have a few artillery. Your opponent will be front shifting across fronts and just threatening everything. They'll be taking all the cities, and it's really hard for Grit to fight. So due to the nature of high funds, he goes from being amazing, which he is in standard because you just spam artillery and your opponent doesn't really have much they can do about it. But in high funds, with all the options you have available, your opponents are able to punish the indirects much easier. So yeah, Grit becomes pretty bad. I don't think he's as bad as Flak or as bad as the other CO that I'm gonna put in garbage, but he's still pretty bad. I would say he's probably at the bottom of tier 4, to be honest. Yeah. Next we have our favorite Hachi. I don't think he belongs in God tier. I don't think that Hachi can touch Colin. Even Hachi can't touch Colin. I think Colin is just too broken. But Hachi in of himself is obviously very broken as well. He uses his abilities to get cheaper units even better in high funds than what he would in standard. The best way to use Hachi is to actually save up your funds on like a few turns before you use your superpower. So you have like 100k, 150k, and then you can just deploy like a cajillion units on like all your cities across the map. You can have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mega tanks just spawned all across the map. And this is the best way to use Hachi, and you can do that very well in high funds. But even that I don't think is good enough against Colin, because Colin will have an advantage from the get-go, because he has a much better day-to-day than Hachi does. So also he's got the power of money game-ending push that basically gives his units infinite firepower to just kill anything that they touch. Basically any 1-for-1 engagement is a kill with Colin's power of money, whereas Hachi doesn't get any firepower bonuses. He just gets a bunch of units. Colin gets a bunch of units and firepower, so that's why I think Colin is better than Hachi. Okay, so next we have Hawke. Hawke is very good in high funds because he's another superpower CO. His main gimmick is his superpower, his Black Storm, taking 2 HP from all of his enemy units and giving 2 HP back to all of his units, and it charges really fast in high funds. So yeah, he goes from being like kind of good in standard to being really good, one of the best COs you can possibly pick in high funds. Not to mention he gets the plus 10% firepower, which enables a lot of tactics like him attacking onto cities. He gets 2-hit KOs pretty much everywhere across the board. So yeah, Hawke is very good. He's very easy to use as well. He's not a very hard CO to use. You just build units, you just go fight, you fight for your cities. When your power is ready, you just use it and just do a ton of damage. Global damage COs like Drake, Olaf, and Hawke, they get better in high funds, and they're very easy to use. I really recommend those COs if you're a beginner, or if you just want to play a game and not think very much. I recommend picking those COs. They're always good. Their superpower is always good. So yeah, Hawke, really good. Highly recommend. Very easy to use. Strong CO. Okay, so this is Jake. Jake, yeah, this dude, the guy that rhymes with Drake but isn't quite as good as Drake. Yeah, he's pretty good. Usually Jake and Adder are like, these are like the top picks for bottom tier. And yeah, usually it's like, oh, are you an Adder player in tier 4 or are you a Jake player in tier 4? And me myself, I'm honestly an adder player because I like spamming the power. But Jake on maps with a lot of planes can actually be pretty good. Plus he gets the extra range on his artillery and rockets, which you can catch a lot of people off guard. Like basically there have been some games between high level players that I've seen, like Djus and this Chinese player who I can't pronounce. That guy, who have just ended games straight away by popping their little power when their opponent didn't expect it. And that's like a hidden thing with Jake. Like nobody really expects him to use his little power, but when he does, he gets that extra range on his artillery, which can allow some really nice tactics and can just end the game. So you have to play around that the entire time. You basically, as Jake has his power bar at 3 or like half full. Sorry about that. That's my alarm. Sorry about that. As Jake has his power bar at half full, you basically have to treat his artillery having +1 range. So that's a nice little bonus for Jake here, something that Adder doesn't get. Plus he gets +2 movement on all of his units when he uses his superpower, which is what he wants to do. And he charges his powers much faster in high funds, which makes him a little bit better. I would probably... I don't know, I think they're about the same level, honestly. I don't think one of them is particularly stronger than the other. But, yeah, so I'll just leave it like this for now. Maybe I'll decide at the end if I want to put which one of these I want to put higher. Okay, Javier. Javier's, yeah, he's kind of similar to what he is in Standard. Although I would say he's, because he's a day-to-day CO, he likes to capture his tower and take advantage of his +10% defense to basically stop his opponent from having so many tactics. Like, for example, if Javier puts a tank on a city, it won't actually get 2-hit KO'd by 2 other tanks unless they have some bonuses. So that's Javier's main strength that he has in Standard. In high funds, he's not as strong because he stays the same, but everyone else gets stronger. So like his competition, like Drake and Olaf and Rachel, those COs get stronger, therefore Javier gets a bit weaker, if you know what I mean. So he gets like nerfed by everyone else getting stronger. But yeah, he's still pretty good in high funds. He still gets all the same, he plays the same kind of style as he does in Standard, and also in Fog. Usually if Javier is involved, the game becomes revolved around who can get the towers. The towers basically become HQs. I made a video about that as well. Like my last video was about Javier and his towers making him weak or strong. So yeah, not much changes about Javier. He's still about the same strength as what he would have been in Standard. Okay, so Jess is, yeah, she's bottom tier again. She's another superpower CO. Her main gimmick is that her superpower is actually really good. But her day-to-day sucks. Her day-to-day basically gives her -10% on infantry, and the reason it sucks, I mean, it's not such a bad like thing. What sucks about it is that infantry cannot 2-hit KO other infantry onto heavy terrain like cities or forests, which disables tactics for her, which lowers her activity, which makes her bad. Other COs like Jake, Adder, these guys don't have to worry about that, whereas Jess can't use 2 of her infantry to kill an infantry on a city, which kind of sucks for her. Although, in high funds, the game becomes more revolved around vehicles, which is good for her. But it also becomes more revolved around air units, which sucks for her. So, if it's a map with all ground units, like this one, oh, no, sorry, that one, if it's a map like that, or a map like this, which is basically all ground units, then she can actually be pretty good and probably a viable pick. But if it's a map with lots of air units, lots of boats, stuff where you need to like unload infantry and do a bunch of infantry stuff, she kind of is lackluster. I think like Adder or maybe even Grimm would be better in that case. So yeah, she gets some potential on certain maps, but on other maps she just falls short, as she does in Standard. Yeah, this guy is garbage. It's I'd say Jugger is even worse than Flak, because Jugger he's more volatile than Flak, but volatility is not what you want. You want guaranteed tactics. You want your units to always be able to do something, but Jugger's units are more likely to miss kills and miss tactics and basically fuck up your entire turn, even worse than Flak. Which means that Jugger is the worst CO in the entire game. Yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone would agree with me on that as well. Jugger is just the worst CO you could possibly pick in the entire roster. So yeah, Jugger, terrible. He basically shoots himself in the foot because his attacks are not guaranteed to go through. So yeah, Jugger sucks. Next CO, Kanbei. Okay, Kanbei is not up here. He would be up here if it was standard, but in tier 1 he goes down a bit because it's the same case as Javier. Kanbei is more of a day-to-day CO than a superpower CO. His units gain plus 30% firepower and defense, and they also cost 20% more to build, which is more than worth it. It's a very worth it trade. It's a very good day-to-day ability. But because like you got guys like Hawke who charge their power super fast, you've got Eagle who charges his power super fast, and they're also so deadly and do so much damage to Kanbei. Kanbei gets a little bit weaker in tier 1 just due to his competition getting stronger. So yeah, he's actually available in tier 1 quite often in high funds, just because he's not that good. It's much easier to play around him, not to mention that he gets outbuilded, out-teched pretty easily in high funds because of like all the options you have for building units. It's not just going to be tank versus tank all the time. It's going to be like, oh, Kanbei's tank versus Hawke's medium tank, in which case Hawke just wins. So yeah, if any of you like Kanbei and you want to play Kanbei, but you're just kind of down that he's always banned in standard, maybe try playing high funds and you can play Kanbei. And yeah, and you'll see what I mean when your opponent is Hawke and you've got your medium tanks. Meanwhile, Hawke has got like mega tanks coming at you and bombers coming at you, and you've just got medium tanks. Like, you'll see what I mean. You'll get out teched, which is why Kanbei is not so amazing in high funds as what he is in standard. Kindle gets she's a very controversial CO. She's a CO that, like, if you go on the Advanced Wars by Web Discord, a lot of people talk about her. Like, there's a lot of conversations about Kindle. Some people say like, oh, she's amazing. Some people say that she sucks and she's worse than Jess or whatever. But I think she's really good. I think she's a tier above all these guys in high funds, and I'm gonna say why. Is because, first of all, Urban Blight is just basically global damage. It's free damage to the opponent. Also, enemies build more expensive units in high funds. So when you use Urban Blight, you're just doing more damage than what you would be doing in standard anyway. Her day-to-day ability is very strong. Getting plus 40% firepower on a city is just so good. Like, that is a lot of firepower. And not to mention that the Urban Blight not only gives that plus 3 damage to all units, it also boosts her unit's firepower to like 80% or something. Really high, and she basically just one-hit KOs anything she hits. Like her tank hitting from a city onto another tank, just one-hit KOs it, and it enables a lot of tactics. And it happens very, very often because games usually fight over cities anyway, so the fighting is usually happening in areas with cities. It won't be happening out in like the wastelands where the plains are. It'll be happening in areas with cities. So she's always gonna have like some sort of tactic or she's always gonna have something available to her, because cities are just everywhere and they're always being fought over. So yeah, Kindle is a tier above these guys. Also, I'm actually going to put her above Andy, because she's very good at killing off units. Also, when she uses her Urban Blight, Andy is forced to repair, so he actually pays the cost. He can't just like keep his units at 7 HP and then heal them up. Kindle is very good at dealing with Andy, but Andy can also beat Kindle. Like, she doesn't just straight up destroy him. It is a pretty good matchup, I think, Kindle versus Andy, but I think Kindle has the slight edge just due to the nature of her abilities, just kind of countering Andy's abilities a bit. Also, she has the access to her superpower if need be, which gives her a huge firepower bonus, and by using that she can like one-hit KO a lot of Andy's units, which defeats the purpose of what Andy wants to achieve. So yeah, and the reason she's above all these guys, like she's above Jake, she's above Adder, is because like Urban Blight is just free damage. It's literally like global damage. Like, how are you gonna say that guys like Adder, who don't even have a day-to-day ability, you just get +1 movement, are in the same league as a day-to-day plus 40% firepower, plus 80% power, free damage every other turn, which it comes so often as well. Urban Blight, like if you play against Kindle, you'll notice that Urban Blight comes like nearly like every turn. It just stings you every other turn, and it's so damn annoying to go against. And it's really strong. In high funds, it charges so quick. Kindle's really good, although she's probably not as good as these guys, but she's really good. So don't underestimate Kindle, guys. She's a beast. So next we have Zach, or Koal, or whatever you want to call this dude. He's not that good, although he's not got trash or anything. He's a viable pick. He can even be viable on maps where there's not too many roads, because getting +1, +2 movement on his infantry is just so good. Like getting +2 movement on infantry, +1 movement on infantry. Adder gets it, and Koal gets it. It's such a good ability, because it allows like so many like 2-hit KOs on infantry, which is all you need. Like if you're using your superpower with Koal, you get the +10% firepower, you get the 40% on roads, or 30% or whatever, but you having just that +10% and that extra movement allows you to 2-hit KO infantry onto cities, or I think onto mountains as well. I don't think it's on mountains, but on cities you can, which is all you need. That's the only firepower boost you need. You don't really need +40% firepower on your infantry. You just need that +2 movement, that +1 movement, and enough to kill off that infantry on the city that allows your tanks to go through and hit something in the back. You know what I mean? So yeah, and Koal enables that. If it's a map with a lot of roads, and Koal goes up even higher, because his road bonus is really nice. It basically just flattens any other unit that it hits. Like chances are that if he's on a road, his enemy will also be on a road. So there's a lot of engagements that can do like 80-90% firepower. That's just really good. So yeah, Koal also, he is a superpower CO. You wanna when you use him, you wanna go for his superpower. Because it's just more valuable than using his little power, which is like 3 stars. He wants to pop his Trail of Woe, I believe it's called, instead of his Forced March, because it gives him better value. It charges really quickly, and not to mention, like, Koal he plays like Jake more than Adder. He's more of like Jake on roads, but he also gets better infantry. So yeah, I'm gonna put him up here. Actually, I'm gonna put him just below Grimm. I'm gonna put Jess above Grimm. I'm gonna put him like here. I'd say these two are probably the best in tier 4, but then Koal is not far behind, and also Jess is also not far behind. These two are probably like the same ability. These two are the same ability. Grimm is definitely better than Grit. But yeah, I think this is pretty accurate so far for tier 4. Lash, yeah, Lash is she's a funny CO, because she's like her abilities seem good, but they don't actually really do that much when you actually get down to it. Because like in high funds, there's a lot of air units. There's a lot of fighting, like with weird units going on. There's a lot of battleships and stuff, and she only really gets advantages from her ground units. So if it's a map with ground units only and a lot of bumpy terrain, she can actually be pretty good. But on maps where it's like kind of open and there's a lot of air units, she doesn't really do all that much, and her superpowers just take forever to charge. And she's definitely a day-to-day CO. She's like, her superpower is it's kind of expensive for what it does, and it's a superpower that you have to use it before you attack in order to benefit from it. It's not like Eagle, who can use it after he's moved, or Hawke, who can use it after he's moved, or Kindle even. She has to use her ability before she attacks in order to get the value or the whatever it does out of it. So yeah, she's not that great. I would say she's like, I don't think she's as good as Adder or Jake. I'd say she's probably on par with like Koal and Jess. So she's like around here somewhere. And of course she's a map dependent situation dependent kind of CO. So I'm gonna put her below Koal, above Jess. So just like this. Although I might change it afterwards. At the end I'll review this. Max. Okay, Max is amazing. Max is tier 2. He's really easy to use. He's very versatile as well. He's very good at like just shifting his units between fronts and moving really quickly and just overwhelming his opponent. He also hits really hard. His plus 20% firepower is just enough for him to be able to hit KO pretty much anything onto cities, and it allows him to have a lot of tactics, which gives him activity, which is really good. Like, activity is one of the most important things you can get in Advance Wars. Like, everything you do, you have funds so that you can build units, and you build units so that you can get activity. Max gets a ton of activity from his abilities, which makes him really good. He's one of my favorite picks actually in this tier. I usually always go for Max. I don't really like slowy, stally COs. So yeah, Max is one of my favorite picks. He's very dynamic. Games with him are always like explosive. The map just explodes with just activity and just action. There's never a dull moment when Max is involved. So yeah, and he's really strong as well. His powers charge really quickly, which allows him to like obviously dart across the map and just gains so much value out of it. So he's a really good CO. He combines his day-to-day with his superpower to have the full package of just running and mowing down his enemies. So yeah, Max is really good. I think he's actually a little bit better than Javier. Because Javier's plus 10% defense means that his tanks don't get 2-hit KO'd on cities by a normal CO, but with Max, with his extra firepower, he actually does 2-hit KO Javier's units. So basically Javier's gimmick of being able to build walls and be really solid kind of gets countered by Max's aggression. So that's why Max is pretty good against Javier. Also, Max is he's very good at denying comm towers and stuff like that. So I would take Max over Javier. Yeah, Max over Javier any day. Is he better than Drake? Drake charges his abilities very quickly. I think this depends on the map again. If it's a map where units, like there's a lot of forests, a lot of slogging through difficult terrain, and a lot of boats and stuff, I think Drake is better. But if it's a map with lots of easy to move terrain like plains or roads and stuff, I think Max is better. But I'm gonna put Max ahead because this is my opinion. This is what I would pick. I would probably pick Max over Drake anyway. So yeah, I'm gonna put Max at the top of tier 2 here. He can't compete with these guys, but he's definitely a powerhouse in this tier and probably one of the best picks. Nell, okay, Nell's a funny CO because I've probably only played her like one time, and that game was like a meme game. So if I was to actually rate her ability, like looking at her, she's basically a superpower CO, right? She just gets like random higher luck on her units. So I'm guessing she wants to build a lot of infantry, which is kind of something for standard. It's not really a thing for high funds. So like big heavy units probably don't take advantage of her luck factor very well, so I don't think she'd be as good in high funds as she would in standard. So I would say that she would be like probably tier 2 if she was to actually like be available as a pick, because all of her luck is positive luck as well. Like unlike these guys who have like just garbage luck across the board. Oh wait, sorry guys. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. My roommate came in and I had to make a little cut there. So yeah, where was I? Nell, she gets only good luck. There's no bad luck with her. So I think if she was available, she'd be like around here. I don't know, but she's never available, so I'm not really gonna focus on her too much. Whatever, moving on. Olaf, yeah, tier 2. There's no way I could put him lower than this. He gets Winter Fury, which is a very, very, very good superpower, and that's basically all he does. Like, Winter Fury is just basically all he is. He doesn't really have a day-to-day. He has a day-to-day, but it's like, I don't even know what it does. It's like, gets weak in the rain or something. I don't know. Basically, his units are all normal, and he just charges up his Winter Fury, and then uses Winter Fury, which does 2 damage to his enemy, and it also creates snow, which is way more devastating than rain, because snow basically hinders air units. It hinders everything across plains and forests. It basically hinders enemy movement way more than what the rain does, so it's way more annoying to the opponent than rain. However, he doesn't cut his unit's fuel in half like Drake does. So I think he's a bit better than Javier. Is he better than Drake? I think he's the fuel thing is super annoying though. But snow is better than rain. Also, Olaf doesn't have weak air units, and air units are very important, so I would say Olaf is probably a little bit better than Drake. Although, Drake versus Olaf, Drake's rain in that case actually affects Olaf even more. So, however, he doesn't get the option of using Tsunami. This is kind of tough. I mean, if it was... I'll put him above Drake just because snow is better than rain, although I don't think he's that much better. I think they're probably about the same, and it kind of depends on the map as well, of course. You know how it is. It always depends on maps. So, yeah, I'll just put him there. I don't really have much else to say about him. He's a very simple CO. You just use him. He is also a superpower CO. He gets better in high funds because his Winter Fury comes faster, and it hurts more as well, so... yeah, tier 2. Pretty good. Rachel is... I think she's tier 2. I think she's probably around here. Like, because... of course, Rachel is a superpower CO. Her main gimmick is her superpower, just firing 3 missiles, which does a ton of damage. It does even more damage in high funds because her enemy units are more expensive units. They also tend to have less infantry, so there's less deflecting the missiles. They usually hit their intended target more often, and they charge. Her ability charges up way faster, so she's way more annoying in high funds. She, although I don't think that she's quite as good as the global damage COs, because those abilities are just always good, and they just can't be stopped. They're just it's just inevitable that you're going to get hit with Winter Fury if you're playing against Olaf, or Typhoon if you're playing against Drake. So, but Rachel's missiles, if there's a lot of bases on the map, you can actually build a ton of infantry from one of the bases, and you can just deflect the missiles down to those areas, and they don't actually end up doing that much in the end. And then her competition in that tier, who is also usually pretty strong COs, her abilities are not going to match up to those COs. So like, she's probably gonna, like, she could probably just get overrun by Max. If Max has a ton of infantry and she deflects 2 of her missiles and just takes 1 where he doesn't want it, then Rachel's not really doing all that much, and Max will just go ahead, use Max Blast, and just kill Rachel. So when you're using Rachel, I think if you can get 2 missiles to hit where you want them to hit, I think that's a win. And one of them gets deflected, that's fine. If only one of them hits where you want it to hit, I think that's pretty bad. So it depends if you think you can get 2 missiles to hit where you want them to hit, or if you're only going to get 1. And that's how I would decide whether or not to pick Rachel on certain maps. So maps with lots of bases are pretty bad for Rachel. She wants maps with like 1 or 2 bases. As few places to build units as possible. And then she gets a little bit better, and I'd probably consider picking her in tier 2. Other than that, I probably just pick like one of these guys because they're just so easy to use. Okay, so next we have Sami, who gets weaker in high funds over standard because infantry are just so... there just aren't so many of them, and they're just not as important in high funds. Infantry can't really touch neo-tanks or bombers or stuff like that, so they can't really like go attack tanks for chip damage and stuff. They just get blown away. So Sami's not as good in high funds, although she's not like the worst CO. She can still threaten things, she can still be really quick. she can build like a lot of transports as well, because I mean high funds you usually see a lot more transports being built because cities are more valuable, and the 5k cost of a, how do I explain this? A 5k cost of a transport doesn't hurt your economy as much as it would in standard, where you have much less money. So like building transports in high fund is way more justified. So that's good for Sami. But because there's not much infantry play in high funds, it's more about units, about vehicles, and her vehicles are not very good. They don't get any bonuses. Plus her superpower is very expensive. Chances are when it comes, the enemy's gonna have like tanks and just all sorts of stuff, just crap all over their cities, and it's going to be really hard to clear those cities so that you can actually go and use Victory March to capture them. So she's not so amazing, although she's not terrible. She's still got some use. I would probably say she's around here somewhere next to Lash and Jess. I would put her, I put her below Jess just because tank's good and infantry not so good high funds. Sasha's terrible. Sasha, she's super annoying in standard because she basically her gimmick is that she wants to use Market Crash, which stops the enemy from ever using their power, and in standard she can kind of achieve that just due to how slow the power bar charges. She can constantly just keep denying the enemy's powers and just use her, so she's the only CO in play that's using their powers. But in high funds, not only that, but her day-to-day gets hindered. Her day-to-day and her Market Crash both get hindered. Her Market Crash gets hindered because enemy powers charge so quick. So by using your Market Crash, the enemy can just charge their bar in like one turn anyway, and get their little power at the very least half the time. So you're not going to deny your enemy's power for very long. Second, she has a day-to-day ability where she gets plus 100 funds per property. But that does not scale with high funds. So if you have 60k income, for example, that means you've only got 30 cities, which means you've only got plus 3,000 funds for your 30 cities, whereas you should be getting plus 6,000 if it was consistent and it scaled, but it doesn't scale. It just stays as plus 100 regardless of what the income is. So it just doesn't affect the game as much as it would in standard. So her abilities basically get cut in half. So she doesn't really do much. And her day-to-day of getting like plus 100 funds per property doesn't really match up to like the other COs in tier 4, I think. So I think she's pretty bad. Although maybe she's not as bad as Grit. Maybe she's a bit better than Grit. I think Grimm is better than Sasha. Yeah, she's pretty bad. I would not recommend her in high funds at all, even though she seems like a good pick because she's good in standard. She's not so hot in high funds. So yeah, tier 4. Okay, Sensei. Sensei, yeah, he's up here. He's really good. He gets bumped down a little bit. Like in standard, he's basically completely broken because infantry are so good in standard. But in high funds, where infantry are not as important, he's kind of like playable and not completely unbeatable. So, as Sensei, you want to obviously you want to flood the map with infantry, but you also want to back him up with some really strong units like heavy, like medium tanks, neo tanks, bombers, copters, stuff like that. You want transports everywhere. You just basically want you want lots and lots of infantry and also heavy hitter units that can sit behind the infantry and get first strikes by using your walls. So yeah, Sensei becomes a pretty interesting game. Sensei mirrors are actually really fun to watch. There's always tons of action and everyone's really aggressive. They're just sacking, getting their powers every other turn. And so Sensei is I'd say he's pretty good, and he's not completely broken. I don't even think he's as good as like Hawke or Eagle. I think Hawke and Eagle can shut Sensei down pretty well if they know what they're doing. So yeah, he also benefits from smaller maps, not big maps. So, and most high funds maps are usually pretty big. So Sensei is kind of bad on those maps because he hits the unit limit, and yeah, that sucks for him. just the nature of the way the maps are, and high funds doesn't serve him very well. Like, a lot of high funds things are against him. They don't help him, which is why he's tier 1 here and not like tier 0 and always banned. Sonja is, yeah, she's tier 4, although I don't think she's like completely useless. Her counter break ability, she's a superpower CO. First of all, she's really annoying to play against because first of all, she hides all of her units HP so that you can't see it. But second of all, the replay function on Advanced Wars by Web is actually broken with Sonja, so you can't actually like replay her turn when you go into the replay viewer. So she can basically have 2 tanks with like one of them has 7 HP, one of them has like 10, but when she makes her move, you don't know where those tanks went because you can't see the replay. So she just becomes super annoying because of that fact. You can take advantage of basically Advanced Wars by Web being broken. So that bumps her up a little bit, and like everyone who uses Sonja kind of does that. They just take advantage of it, and then like it's not even like in a sneaky way where you like use the old interface or whatever. You basically just play the game normally, and your opponent can't replay Sonja's turn, and then it's really hard to know like where her units, like which one is max HP, which one is low HP. So she gets super annoying, and her counter break, which is her main gimmick, basically means that you can't hit her with 1-for-1 trades. So like you can't really hit her tanks with your own tanks because counter break makes it so that her units strike first, even if they're being struck first. So your tank attacks Sonja's tank that has counter break active. Her tank will strike you before you strike it, and that will be the damage calculation. So it's basically a defense boost, her counter break, and it's really good actually if your opponent has a lot of matching units. I actually remember I had a game against Witty 711 who was using Jess against my Sonja, and he spammed a ton of tanks. I spammed a ton of tanks, and he thought it was good for him because tanks are good for Jess. But it's also good for Sonja to have 1-for-1 matchups like tanks versus tanks, because when she uses her superpower, she can push and can't be touched back. So she has some opportunity in the form of defense. So she's not completely useless. I think she's she's not good, but she's not like terrible. Also, she gets bad luck from her engagement, which sucks for her, although it's kind of offset when she uses her powers because she gets extra 10% firepower. And she's really annoying to fight against. She can be kind of hard to fight against if you are not very experienced with Advanced Wars. So yeah, you could probably catch out a lot of lower level players if you use her. So I would rate her like, I think she's a bit better than Grimm, because Grimm is just got no defense. That's terrible. I would rate her, I'd put her like probably here below Jess, but just above Sami. Yeah, that's where I put Sonja. Okay, next CO. We only got 2 left. So we got the 2 main bad guys left. So here we got Sturm. Sturm is tier 2, although he's probably at the top of tier 2 somewhere, like here, because this is not the Sturm from Advanced Wars 2, by the way. This Sturm right here is he's basically a watered down version of that Sturm, where he gets minus 20% firepower as opposed to plus 20% firepower. Although he does get an extra feature in Advanced Wars by Web, which is a small meteor which does 4 damage. In high funds as well, his recons are extremely dangerous, because interrupting caps in high funds just hurts the enemy's economy way more than what it does in standard. And so him building recons really early on in the game and just interrupting a whole bunch of caps just completely screws up the enemy's capture phase, and it does a lot of damage to their economy than you may think. And like within a few turns, you'll notice that they can't afford tanks and you can afford tanks. So then he just leads the game all the way through until like the end of the mid game into the end game, and he'll always be ahead of you. Because of his recons in the early game, just going ahead and interrupting those 2k captures, even capture chains. Like he can even sack his recons into enemy tanks if it managed to interrupt an infantry. It's usually worth it in these cases. So yeah, it's very easy for him to get value out of his recons and high funds, which makes him really good. He's and he's a day-to-day CO as well, so all of his competition are quite strong. Like obviously you got Drake. Drake is quite common opponent for Sturm. Max is quite a common opponent for Sturm. Von Bolt is quite a common opponent for Sturm. Javier too, but Sturm can take games off of these guys. Even though they've got their broken global damage, Sturm he's got his meteor, he's got his recons, which he's got this permanent movement bonus as well, where he can move his units through any terrain. It's all he needs. He doesn't really need that plus 20% firepower. So yeah, Sturm is really good. I would say he's probably a cut above Drake. Is he better than Olaf? Yeah, he's better than Olaf, I think. I think he's tier 2 like this. He says he's weak in the snow, but he's just as weak in the snow as anyone else. Like, it basically just ruins his terrain bonus. So I would say he's around here. I'd say he's at the top of tier 2. He's pretty good. Von Bolt is, he's a day-to-day CO who likes to take advantage of his plus 10% defense, kind of like what Javier does. In Standard, he's very good at bullying his opponent because he just sits on cities and stuff, and he's really hard to dislodge from those cities. He just has amazing stats, and he can't be 2-hit KO'd, so he basically disables and shuts down a whole bunch of tactics for his opponent, and that's what makes him good in Standard. In high funds, however, he just because he's gonna run into Neo tanks, he's gonna run into bombers, he's gonna run into all these things. These things will just wall break him anyway, and in that case, his what he's playing for just gets kind of watered down. So although he does get his superpower pretty quickly, and his superpower is like, it's basically a bad meteor strike, because meteor strike just straight up kills the enemy units, whereas this thing just like kind of slows them down. It does 3 damage and they can't move on the next turn. So it's basically a watered down version of Meteor Strike. So I would say that Von Bolt is probably like around here somewhere. Yeah, I'd say he's like, I'd say maybe he's a bit better than Rachel, but I don't think he's as good as Drake or Olaf. Maybe he's better than Javier too. Yeah, I would say he's probably around here like this. I think this is probably my tier list now complete. I don't really think I need to change much. I think that's pretty much everything. I will go over it one more time though. So Colin, yep, uncontested. Hachi, uncontested. Yep, Eagle, best of tier 1. Yep. I'm just thinking about Nell. Should I put Nell like up here maybe? I'm thinking of putting Nell like maybe here, but the Nell is difficult because I don't actually play her and she's always banned, so like I don't really know like where she stands, to be honest, but like I imagine she's probably around here somewhere. Maybe she's better than Von Bolt. Maybe she's like here. Yeah, she probably is, because she could probably just send like infantry into Neo tanks and whatever and just kill them off. So yeah, she could do stuff like that. Yeah, I'll do that. Okay, Kindle's better than Andy. Yep. Adder, Jake. Okay, so between Adder and Jake, these two are definitely at the top of this tier, but which one is better? I think Adder, because he gets +1 range on his infantry, which is so good. It gets plus 10% firepower, which is all he needs to 2-hit KO infantry, so yeah, I'd say that. Yep. Koal is pretty good. He's underestimated, so he can be here higher than Lash. Lash doesn't really do much most of the time. Jess is like, she's got bad infantry, so she disables a lot of tactics, which she loses a lot of opportunity. I mean, like, what's the point of tanks like being strong if your enemy's just got a wall that you can't break through because your infantry are weak? So you can't initiate your attacks. You just have to use tanks to break walls, which is not really what you want to do, because you want to use your tanks to hit enemy tanks. So Sonja, yeah, she's a bit better than Sami, I'd say. Sami, yeah. Okay. I'm pretty sure this is it. I'm pretty sure this is accurate. This is my opinion on the tier list. Okay, guys, there it is. There is my High Funds tier list video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Tell me if you agree, if you disagree, if you think what the current league tier list is more accurate than mine. Yeah, just let me know what you think. I've been reading like all the comments recently. I literally read every single comment on my videos because like I don't have that many comments, which means I can read through them all. So even if I didn't reply to it or I didn't like it or whatever, I still read it, I promise. Also, yeah, just hit the subscribe button, which is down there. I would appreciate that. Leave comment, and yeah, that's pretty much all I got for you guys. I will probably make a tier list on the units as well, so stay tuned for that, because that was an idea that someone commented, and I thought it was a really good idea, because like I don't think anyone's done a tier list on the units before. So I will make the tier list, and I will do that video soon, because I think that's a really good idea. So yeah, guys, peace out, have a lovely day, a lovely week, lovely whatever. Bye bye.